Today's episode is brought to you by the Whole Life Decluttering Workshop, featuring a proprietary 6-step system, the Simple System, to help you declutter your life in a way that will last. Purchase this workshop on demand and receive the video training and dedicated workbook at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
What thing do I cut out? How do I figure out if I'm supposed to do less? Are we saying work less hours? And my boss may not be okay with that. Are we saying don't show up to your kids' activities? Well, that doesn't feel right either. Are we saying don't pursue your passion projects? Like, what's the less and how do we figure that out?
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and as a mom and caregiver, I know what it's like to have a ton of things on my plate and to be overwhelmed daily. One of the most humbling and challenging aspects of it all has not necessarily been how to handle all of it, but to realize my part in it, specifically what I've been choosing to do that actually contributes to the overwhelm. Please understand, I'm not victim blaming here. I have lived this, and I understand there are so many reasons we get caught up in doing too much. And the idea that we have a choice in that can be unexpected and feel really challenging, especially when it truly feels like we don't have a choice. Just as the rapids and flowing water can move you from one place to another so fast you don't even realize what happened, so too can mom life or caregiver life in general move you where you don't expect to be or don't want to be. That's survival mode. And pulling ourselves out of that and reflecting is key to managing the challenges while we can still lean into the joys. So, funny story, as I was gearing up to record this episode, I saw a reel on Instagram with moms talking, and the conversation went something like this. Hi, are you okay? No, you? Absolutely not. There's too much. Yeah, there's gotta be less, but there's always more right around the corner. Right? How can there be more? Make it make sense. Well, it was good to see you. Yeah, you too. We should do this again in 6 months with no plans because I'll back out. Well, not if I bail on you first or burn it all down. What? And it ends with one mom indicating that the other mom has her shirt on backwards. Of course, I sent it to my guest immediately. This depicts the mom life of putting out fires all too well. But I promise you, there's a way out of it. My guest today joins me to share her personal and professional perspective. Amy Grace is the compassionate voice behind the Everyday Supermoms podcast, where she interviews moms from all walks of life, sharing their stories and wisdom. She focuses on supporting mothers across the lifespan, believing that a healthy, happy mom impacts the whole world. As a mom for over 25 years and a licensed therapist in Colorado, Amy specializes in helping moms from preconception to empty nesting. Through her podcast, counseling, and courses, Amy's dedicated to empowering mothers to embrace their journey with resilience, confidence, and connection. I was delighted to join Amy on her podcast in the very beginning and also delighted to hear that the episode is doing so well. I was excited to invite her onto my podcast so that we could keep talking about what happens in mom life, and most specifically, why we do too much and what to do about it. So in our conversation, we talk about why moms need to do less, which may feel rather obvious to you, but we also talk about how to go about it. Today's episode is intended to encourage and guide you to a simpler, more satisfying mom life, and I'm excited for you to hear what we have to say today. Now let's join Amy to talk about Why Moms Need to Do Less. Amy, welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I am extra excited for this mom conversation with you today.
I am super excited to share my heart and passion for moms with you today.
So we have already done that on your podcast, and that was so much fun to help you kick that off, and it's growing so beautifully now, and I'm so excited for you. And it's extra special for me to be able to reciprocate and invite you back because we find that we have this conversation where, like, there's so much more to talk about. And speaking of so much more, that's kind of mom life, right? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we dig into the topic, would you share a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what makes you light up?
So, my greatest passion in life is motherhood. I have been a mom for almost 26 years now. My oldest bio kid is 26, and my youngest is 10. So, I have a 15 and a half year span in my own 4 bio kids, and then I've got 2 bonus grown sons who are 27 and 29. So, we've got a full span between my husband and I. And I became a mom early, and I was so passionate about it. Then, as a therapist, my career has been entirely focused on helping moms be the best version of themselves because I truly believe when moms are the healthiest version of themselves, the whole world is impacted. And I feel like that sounds a little dramatic, but it's true because, the old school saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That has so much truth to it. When moms are struggling, the whole family feels it. When moms are thriving, the family feels that too. That has been my passion in my therapy practice. And then in the last couple of years, I've started more online services to support moms. So I've got my courses and things like that. And then I love my podcast, my Everyday Supermoms podcast, where I got to speak with you and share your supermom story. And I'm just so passionate about helping moms to create a motherhood that they truly love, that they're not just in survival mode, but feel like they actually love this gig as being a mom.
Yes. Also, yes. I so appreciate that because coming from the mom life mode myself and then also the caregiver mode. And again, it's being in service to others can be such a beautiful thing. It's a magical thing. It's an incredible thing that we appreciate. Well, okay, if you're in service to others, who's in service to you? Who's
Yes.
looking out for the caregiver is always my question. That's the same idea with moms. And sometimes, and I think that's a big part of our conversation here, is that we simply, just the same as when we are in the doctor's office, we must advocate for ourselves. But as fellow moms, we can advocate on behalf of each other. And that's what I love about what you do. It's so important that we address this. And it's not only, hey, yay, thanks, mom, for like giving everything you have, but how about we explore how to maybe not do that? It's been a huge pet peeve of mine for a long time that the mom epitaph of, she gave until she had nothing is displayed as this wondrous thing that we want to celebrate. And I'm like, no, I would rather have my children celebrate, oh my gosh, she was incredible and she gave so much, but she also took care of herself.
Yes, because the truth is, our kids learn so much more from watching us than they do from what we say. So if we say, you guys need to take care of yourselves, but we're not doing it, good luck seeing your kids actually taking care of themselves.
Exactly. You want to say, do as I say, not as I do, but we all know that we model not only for our children, but we model for each other as moms. So I love that we can have a conversation like this and you're listening and you're a mom and you go, oh, if Lisa and Amy can take this stand and think this way and reflect this way and try these things, I can too. That's huge.
Yes. And I think especially over the last several decades, I was about to say couple of decades, and then I realized it kind of goes back to the 70s, which feels like just, 2 decades ago.
It was. Don't math me. Don't math me on this.
But really since the 70s, 80s, the pressure on moms has exploded. I'm so thankful for many of the pieces of feminism, but one of the things that it has created is this women can do it all, and therefore we should do it all at the same time. So we've got moms that are trying to have these amazingly successful careers while raising a herd of children, taking them to 5 billion activities a week, trying to act as if they're a stay-at-home mom while they're not a stay-at-home mom. Or even if they are a stay-at-home mom, trying to be every version of that, the soccer mom, the perfect meal mom, the perfectly designed home mom, etc. And we're just more and more and more, and it's just wearing everybody out.
This is so true. And that was my first question to you is, let's start with the obvious. Why are we doing so much? And it's interesting when you brought up feminism, I'm like, I am a feminist in a huge way. So where are we going with this? And it's like, well, it's the idea that that's supposed to be choice, but there's become this expectation of, no, you're just adding on, correct? You're not
Mm-hmm.
getting to choose. You are now just adding it all together. And it's like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. When did I have the capacity for that? And then we're pulled in different directions. And the way that you were describing this made me think of the Barbie movie
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yes.
monologue. Do you know the one I'm talking about,
I wish
right?
I could recite that thing. I love it so much.
I need to work on that. I feel like I fell short here. Sorry, but yes. So she is describing how you've got to be this, but you can't be that, and you have to be that, but you can't be this, and it's this constant like barrage of okay, you want to have it all, but you can't say that you want to have it all, and you and it's like how it's basically impossible to be all the things and all the time. And what you were saying is like, okay, we can do it all, and we're supposed to do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. I'm human. I know it doesn't seem like that. And that's why I love when you're talking about super moms. It's like, okay, we just are because we are moms. But how about we talk about the limits? So we're being fed this information. And when we try to do so much, I feel like it's celebrated. What else are you seeing that's really contributing to why we try to do so much?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things to that, honestly. I think let's call out social media because that's a big one. That we are constantly comparing ourselves to not just our neighbors anymore like they used to. Keeping up with the Joneses is not a new idea. It's just now we get to see all of them. So, like, we get to see hundreds to thousands of people's lives and their highlight reel, and we're comparing our everyday to their highlight reel. So we have the pressures of social media, which I feel like has been talked about a ton, but I feel like we've got to be honest that it really is impacting you. If you're on social media, you're probably seeing something, oh, that person went on a cool trip. I should book a cool trip. Oh, that person just got recognized for being the top lawyer in my city while being a mom. Why am I not doing something like that? Like, we can do that kind of stuff all the time. So social media, I think, is a huge contributor over the last couple of decades of the pressure that women are putting on themselves. I also think the economy in today's society has impacted this because there's a lot of moms that don't feel like it is a choice whether they're going to work or not. A lot of homes that are forced into two parents having to work in order to just make things work. Yet those moms still have these hearts to be great moms. And so they want to do it both. And then they're spread thin. So economy has played into this. There's so many things that can trigger mom guilt. And so we have this internal feeling that we're not doing enough. I actually just did an episode on this on my podcast about mom guilt and how prevalent it is. And there's so many different pieces of this puzzle. There's external things where we feel like other people are putting the pressure on us. But honestly, I think for a lot of us that are doing too much, we are doing it from internal pressure that we want to do it. It's not just that we feel like we have to, but the reality is I am a multi-passionate woman and I have 3 kids still at home. I have a therapy practice. I have a podcast. I'm writing not 1, but 3 books at the same time because why write 1 at a time? I take my kids to activities and I do all this stuff. And I'm not saying that to brag. In some ways, I'm saying it to a little bit like out myself that I do too much sometimes too. But the reality is it's not like somebody told me I had to do all this. It's that I love it all and I want to do it all. And so I think there's often this internal, I want to. And then you've got to face but there's still only 24 hours each day. And theoretically, we're supposed to sleep a third of them.
Theoretically. Yes, exactly. I love that you brought up the multi-passionate side of it. I constantly try to show the two sides of the coin. And when one is that sort of when we're people pleasers or we're obligers, when we are being fed information, and sometimes it's information even coming from the best, most well-intended resources of how we want to do something. So there's that aspect of it, how we want to show up. But then there's also the passionate side of I too love being there and engaged with my kiddos and being able to take them back and forth to activities and be part of the process and help out and, be engaged in a different way than my mom was. Although I know my mom ran a business and she still managed to be she may not have been at the soccer games, but she was definitely at every play performance that I did. And it's something that we love to do, and then, okay, we could say, "All right, so we do that," and then we stop, and it's like, "No, but I have all these other things I love to do, like this podcast, like coaching, like all of the things." So, it's such a combination, and much of it is self-driven, and that's one place where we can look, but I think the key is people will often say, "Okay, well, then stop doing so much," and you're like, "Yes." Oh, but also, how? And so do I stop doing so much in that now again we go back to that whole selfless mom, then I just stop doing the things I love?
Mm-hmm.
How does that even work?
Yeah. What thing do I cut out? How do I figure out if I'm supposed to do less? Are we saying work less hours and my boss may not be okay with that? Are we saying don't show up to your kids' activities? Well, that doesn't feel right either. Are we saying don't pursue your passion projects? Like, what's the less and how do we figure that out?
Well, I'd love to dig into that. Got any ideas, Amy?
Yeah. I have a couple of things. One is I do believe that women can do amazing things. We can sort of do it all, and yet we can't do it all at the same time. So, a couple of things that I use for myself is this is such a great idea. Is it a now problem? Is this a now idea? We can't do everything every single day. What's today's thing? What is this season's thing? So, kind of looking at what is the priority right now. And part of how I do that is I take a lot of time and did this. I'm so thankful I had a wise person speak this into me when my oldest daughter was like 2. But I got really clear about what my big picture goals were for being a mom. What does that look like as far as how do I want my kids to grow up to be? What character traits do I want them to have? What skills do I want them to have? What do I want them to remember about their childhood? What are my personal goals that might be outside of motherhood as far as career or passions or friendship or social or marriage or whatever else might go into that? But what are my personal goals? Looking at that and getting so clear that each day when I'm presented with a new opportunity, I ask, is that even related to my big picture priorities? Does this thing that I feel like I need to do even matter? Grand scheme of life, in 5 years or 15 years from now, will me not showing up to this activity matter? Will me not staying that extra hour at work matter? Will me grabbing takeout for the third time in a week really matter versus the fact that I didn't make a whole bunch of Pinterest meals? And so, really looking at not only does this fit with my priorities for now, but does this fit with my vision for the future? And will this matter 10 years from now?
I love that because when we are in that survival mode that we know all too well, it's a very present, focused kind of way to be, which I know we often talk about as very positive. It is a positive thing to be right in that moment. But in order to make sure that the choices we're making in the moment are correct, we do need to step out. We do need to pause and reflect and look at the bigger picture. We do need checkpoints where it's like, okay, great, I'm running around like crazy. And most of the time we know. We're like, this can't be the thing.
Yeah.
It's like the reel that I sent you. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about perfect timing,
Yeah.
the world's on fire. How are you? Okay? No, not at all. No, absolutely not. You know when it's like, oh, this can't be the thing. Like, make it make sense. So if that's the case, then it's like, okay, you need to step back. And that's what we both do with our clients, right? To step back for a moment, take a breather, and be like, the choices that I'm making, do they make sense? And I like how you say, will they matter? But it's not just, do they matter right now? Do they matter with your values? Because of course they can. Being part of the PTA could definitely matter in that I like public service and I like
Mhm.
to be able to be involved in the school and help my kids out and be supportive. But is it going to matter when they're off to college and for the community? Not necessarily, no. And also, from my perspective, especially from the productivity side and the scheduling side, can I even fit that in? And everything that's a yes is also a no, and vice versa.
Yes.
So, what are we saying yes and saying no to each and every time? But yeah, this long term idea, will it matter in 5 years? I also felt like you were speaking straight to my soul when you talked about the takeout. And you know what's really funny is that my kids actually really enjoy that. We're getting takeout tonight. Woohoo! Like, so it's actually a good thing. But it's like in the grand scheme of it, I want to be a present mom who my children feel like they can come to at any point to discuss anything.
Yeah.
Making them a really good homemade meal isn't a huge part of that. Okay, we have some favorites. We have some times when, like my youngest, I'm like, making meatballs tonight. And it's like, yes. And that's great. I love that, especially because most of the time my reality is I make things and I'm like, why am I making this when it feels like nobody likes it?
Yes.
Um, so, like, can we not? But there are a few favorites and they get excited about that. But that could be a once a week thing or an every 2 weeks thing. So when you look at it in the big picture, it's not only what matters, but also how are we prioritizing? What's more important in making those choices, right?
Yeah. And really individualizing it, because your list is going to be different than my list, is going to be different than most of these listeners that are listening. And so a lot of the work that I do with moms is really customizing motherhood to who they are. And we talk about their personality traits, their strengths, their vision, their giftings, all of these things. If you know that you are the worst cook in the world, trying to put this pressure on yourself to try to cook 7 nights a week is like setting yourself up to feel bad about yourself 7 nights a week. But if you know that you happen to be like secretly, you should have a Pinterest page of all the things that you create every night, and that is your gifting, and you feel really good at the end of the day because that is something that you can do with your gifting for your children, I'm certainly not going to tell you not to do that. Looking at that and individualizing it of what matters in your family to you as a mom, and how do you live that out?
I really like that phrasing. So when I work with clients, we're talking about the same things that you're talking about, your personality, your tendencies, and things like that. And I will often talk about love languages. So using an example, I'll use my youngest again, whose love language is gift giving. And so it's like that's how they're going to perceive the love. And so planning a birthday party is going to be huge. Whereas my eldest is like, yeah, it's good. What are we eating? Like, and so it kind of goes back to that when you say what matters. What matters to us as a family? What matters to each of us? Where is it going to hit big? I talk about the 80-20 and stuff. How can we get most of the way to our goal? And I know that for most of the family with birthday gatherings, maybe a few balloons, but it's okay. We got a helium crisis, so we're trying to be careful with that. But what's really happening is I am making the family's favorite cake, a vanilla cake with homemade chocolate buttercream frosting. That's
Ooh.
happening. That's huge. That is birthday to them. And I know this by now. We've talked about it by now. So then I know that's what I have to carve out time for, is making sure that cake happens. And I can find different ways to be efficient with that. I can bake the cake ahead of time and then freeze it, then pull it out, then do the buttercream last minute. There's lots of ways, but I don't have to worry about matching plates or balloons or where are we having the party or getting a venue or any of that other stuff, because they don't care. They're just like, where's the cake? And I would like gifts too, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And I think what you just touched on is so important too, because I feel like so often as moms, we spend so much time and energy on things that other people, especially the people that matter most to us, don't even care about. imagine if you were like, I've got to find all the balloons, I got to find the matching plates, I've got to find all the decorations. That probably would take hours out of your life to set up this perfect social media, perfect picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the people that really matter to you are like, cool, where's the cake? That's all I care about. Like, seriously, if you do nothing else, just give me a delicious cake and I will be happy. And I think about that, like, everything I do, I try to keep that in mind. Does this matter? Is this effort that I'm doing, is this going to have a payoff? I think about that opportunity cost. Like you said, everything I say yes to is a no to something else. And I have a lot of yeses I would love to give. So I want to make sure I'm giving them in the right places.
I have a lot of something else I would like to give, but we knew what this was. Okay, so yes, let's hop back to a phrasing that you used. And I just want to point that out, really highlight it because I think it's so, so good. We're talking about, I love this opportunity cost. We're talking about, love languages and what really matters and stuff like that. But also something that you mentioned, I don't want it to be buried, is this idea of your gifts, your specialties, the things that you love. For example, cooking is a great example, and I'll use my mother-in-law as an example. And I mean this with all the love because she and I get along splendidly. Like, it's shocking how good we get along. But she will be the first to tell you cooking is not her thing. It stresses her out. And so when it is a night where she's like, okay, I will take over, it's a different kind of energy. Whereas I'm one of those cooks in the kitchen who's like, recipe schmecipe, like, we got this. It's good. I'm like a fast and I don't want to say fast and easy. That's a whole nother discussion. But I'm like, let's just like get this meal going and we're good. And I'm very confident and it's fine. She could bake a pie like nobody's business. So it's understanding where are your strengths, but it's not just about where are your strengths, but what's going to keep your stress lower and your joy higher. And I love that you brought that up because that is energy management. That's where productivity comes in. That's where efficiency comes in. And also that's where our life satisfaction comes in. The baking of the cake, I mean, I do own that cake. I can't be humble about it. It's phenomenal. So that's an example of where I come in strong and they happen to love it. So look what we did. We matched up something I love to do and I'm good at and they love. And we focused on that. It's exponentially positive.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is going to look different in every family because every mom's going to have different strengths and different giftings, and every kid is going to have different things that light them up. I think almost all of my kids have a quality time love language, which gets challenging for the record because when they all have quality time, it's trying to disperse it well. But my 15-year-old is not a physical touch person. She just isn't. And so, like, if I'm sitting there trying to hug on her, even if it's how I would like to love on her, she is not going to respond in that way. And so here I am making all this effort, and she's just like, this is not working for me. Whereas my youngest is like constantly touching me and constantly wanting to be hugged and loved and play with my hair and rub my back. And I'm pretty sure she's all the love languages. She's just like a little ball of love or something.
Yeah.
But like, they're so different. And so figuring out what are your kids' love languages, but what do they appreciate as far as things you even do? What are they wired for? And then how does that work with your personality, your giftings?
I love that. Okay. So the big takeaway here is that main question, does it even matter? We're stepping back and saying, here are all the things that I'm doing. Does it matter? And we've talked about how that matches up to things. Does it matter in the now? Is it a priority? Does it matter long term? Does it matter to others in our lives, those that we're serving, those that we're loving, part of our family unit, part of our team, right? We're on a team together. With that, as we wrap things up, can you help us kind of like walk away with, okay, here's some questions I can ask myself, or how can I determine what matters?
If every listener can spend some time thinking about what really matters to them in the big picture for their motherhood experience, like 10, 15, 20 years from now, what will you measure your motherhood success by? Really get clear about that. And when you can do that, then that's the measuring tape that you use for figuring out if you're on target with even the day-to-day stuff. If one of the things that's really important to you is that quality time and conversations, then maybe having a meal around a table is super important to you. Whether that's takeout or home cooked, you can still have the conversation around the table. So, figuring out which pieces are important to you. And then the other piece for moms, and I talk about this pretty frequently. In fact, my word for this year was margin. And the reason I put it in there as my big word is I am the queen of filling every second of the day. And so being intentional about building in margin into my life this year, that there are gaps on my calendar, that there are more hours in the day than things I have planned. Because one of the things that really stresses moms out is we tend to book every second out and then life happens. A kid gets sick. There's an emergency at work. The car breaks down. There's a snow day. Oh, I didn't realize the kids had today off of school. There's all these things that can come up. And when we have no margin, there's very little room to pivot. So being intentional about building in margin in the everyday, even if that means saying a few more no's, so that when things happen, you can still focus on what truly matters.
Yeah, I love that for so many reasons. You are truly, truly speaking my language, not just my mom language, but my productivity coach language. I use the term buffer, same
Mm-hmm.
idea. And funny, I just recorded a podcast. It will have come out by the time this episode comes out about where we get caught, the habit that we get into that really catches us in the clutter of life, right? And part of that, it's that sort of excess that we allow into our lives. And one is that perception of our calendar, like, look at all that space. I can fill that. And I want to be very clear that that is such a normal response.
Yes.
And I do think that there's a perception sometimes when you see it on Google Calendar or you see it in a physical planner that it looks like, it feels like a lot of space, and you don't always realize what's involved with what you need to do, what time you need in between, as well as the unexpected that you're talking about. There's always delays, but there's even the fact that, I'm going to bring this up again. I know it's going to come as a shock. Are you sitting down? We are human. What? I'm sorry. That comes as a shock. I know. So yeah, it's the building in that kind of that space that we need, sometimes simply to breathe.
Yes.
Sounds so good, right? What? Yeah. So I love that. So thinking about what matters in the big picture, but what I really like is the way you phrased it as how you're going to measure your motherhood experience. And I love this because we can replace this. How are you going to measure your life experience, how you show up on this planet in any way, shape, or form? And what you're describing is also, we can just replace words, right? It's like measuring your life satisfaction, measuring how productive you are, measuring your success. You get to decide
Mm-hmm.
what it means. What's going to help you sleep at night? What's going to help you say, you know what? I did all right. I feel even now, because, you measure as you go. And when I see my kids out there, and I am proud of the fact that I have very talented musically and artistic kids, right? This is wonderful. But the thing that really gets to me the most is when I see them being kind. So I understand that. And that may be a good way to think about that. Is like, where do you see, like, just with core values, the same ideas when you say, oh, that's a time when I was particularly proud, particularly satisfied, looking for those clues. The same idea for your family and for your team at home, if you will.
Yeah. And I think it can also be, what were the compliments that somebody gave you about your kids or yourself that really lit you up? Like if I were to say, oh my gosh, you have the kindest kids,
Yeah.
or if I were to say, you have such hardworking kids, or there seems to be things that different people are going to respond differently, right? When you light up, when somebody says that, that's a good sign that that's a big value for you.
I love that. That's a great hint for that. Let's decide what matters. Let's decide what the measurement is. Because once you have that, like you said, then you can start to, it's almost like reverse engineer the choices that you're going to make that feed into that. And I know for sure that the kindness part for my kids, for example, means, yeah, we don't need to have a home cooked meal. We can easily have a conversation about how we're helping others and looking out for each other over a pizza. And it's going to work
Mhm.
just great, especially if they're garlic knots. Just saying. Okay.
Mhm.
With that in mind, I think this is a wonderful place to wrap up. Any other final thoughts, something you wish that I had asked, or you want to make sure that if nothing else, we take this away from our conversation?
Being a good mom isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. A lot of times we're go, 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 and we get so caught up in the urgent that we miss out on the important. And when we can focus on what really matters, not only do we thrive as moms, but so do our kids.
I want to be very careful with our technology, so I'd like to find another mic for you to drop. That's what we're talking about. I love that, Amy. Thank you. Before we head into our rapid wrap up, let us know where we can find you online. Your podcast for sure, and I'm going to link to my episode of your podcast so they can find you there. And where else can we look for you?
So on Instagram, if you're on there, I'm at Hey Amy Grace, and I post a lot about my podcast and all sorts of motherhood related topics. You can find my website at amygrace.bio, and it links to all of my things. We've got the links to my courses, my podcast, and if you are happening to be in Colorado, I do offer therapy for moms in Colorado.
Wonderful. And yeah, if you're on Instagram with me already, I'm following Amy. So come on along. Let's play together.
Yes.
All right. For our rapid wrap up, we are looking for 3 things that inspire positively living for you. So a song, a saying, and a resource. Let's start with the song. What's coming up for you today musically?
Yeah. I have a whole Spotify playlist that I call Supermom that I play when I'm needing to up my game for the day. One of the first ones that's on that is Unstoppable by Sia. That's one of my I can do this kind of songs. Whatever the day holds, whether it's super momming or if it is super podcaster or super therapist, I pop that thing on and it helps me to feel like I got this.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to add that to the Positively Living Podcast Spotify playlist, probably
Nice.
volume 4 at this point. So yeah, I love that. C is amazing. How about a saying? It could be a mantra, a quote, something you have up on the wall that you share with people a lot, or maybe just something that drives you personally.
So I would say that the saying that I find myself saying in my head and sometimes out loud is something as simple as, I've got this. I find myself saying it at the top of a snowboarding run that looks a little sketch. I say it before I take my kids on a full day of adventure or struggling through homework time or whatever it is. And it's such a simple saying, but I literally will say it out loud. I've got this. And I do.
I love it. You do got this. And Mama, you listening right now, you've got this too. Okay, how about a resource? It could be a book, an app, anything that makes life better.
A resource that I really loved, and now I'm struggling with which author it is, but there's a book called Do Less. And it is such a great book for us women because it actually looks at our hormones and what times of the month and cycles and all these different things and how it relates to our productivity, our energy levels, and all these things. And it challenges us to listen to our bodies and our minds and our energy levels as we sometimes gear up and sometimes gear down. So I love that one, especially for this topic. And then I love mindset tools. And so I've used a lot with myself, with my clients. And so I actually created a workbook that's available on Amazon called the Motherhood Mindset Workbook and Journal. And it's got a lot of this stuff like we've talked about, like getting clear about your vision, your mantra, your all of that, and then focusing on the positive stuff.
Oh, I love that. And by the way, the Do Less book, that's in my wheelhouse, right? I love that. And that's Kate Northrup.
That's right. It just was going away in that moment.
Yeah, we got the Positively Living resources link on the resources page of the positivelyproductive.com website. I definitely have the links for the books, and it is in there. So awesome. I love
Awesome.
that suggestion. And then last but not least, we're going to add a little bonus thing here. Let's share some gratitude today, Amy. So what or who contributes to positively living for you?
It's going to be cheesy, but it's my kids.
Yes, there you go.
I love my kids. They're all so unique. I have 4 biologically girls, and they are just so different, and they all bring me joy in different ways. And so they are my reason for doing so many things in life, but truly they gift me so much joy in return.
I love that. And because we are talking about mom life today, I will add that I'm grateful for the lessons mine have taught me. I've learned so much from them. It's so easy to think, we're the adults, technically.
Most of the time.
And that we're teaching them, and we do, but they teach us so much. And let's go a little further with the gratitude. And I will say how grateful I am that we connected, that you invited me to your podcast, and now that you could join us here. And I want to thank you so much, Amy, for shining your light so brightly in this world and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we've connected in this world with such similar passions for people that just have different pieces of the puzzle.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback or questions, you can find me through the Connect page of the positivelyproductive.com website. And if you're looking for any of the resources mentioned here, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.